national time transfer accounts, I would just like to clarify it very fast what it is exactly. So these are estimates of economic flows in the household economy. So basically we measure household production by age and gender, so cooking, cleaning, shopping and care, all those activities that are not included in national accounts, and just examine who are the providers of unpaid household labor. This is not such a big deal. This is already done in household satellite accounts, but the novelty of these national time transfer accounts is that we also measure who consumes these services, so who consumes childcare, at which ages, and also the other household goods and services. And by estimating both production and consumption, we can then also look at who gives these services to whom. So we also look at transfers within the household economy, which we call also time transfers. And also Gretchen introduced this, but we measure these transfers as well as the production and consumption. Oh, somehow, I'm sorry, something is weird with my presentation, but the main point here is that we measure them in time as well as in monetary terms. So now I will focus only in time measures. So in these historical accounts, basically we use the multinational time use survey. I will not go into too much methodological issue now, but again, if you come to the workshop, you can hear a lot more about these methodologies. We have results for historical results for many countries, including Austria, Denmark, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Spain, and the UK. For example, in the Netherlands we have 7 time points, also in the UK many time points. Now I will focus only on countries that have 2 time points. So for the production profiles, this is the Netherlands, and for women only, production profiles. So this is age, and this is a minute per day. We can see clearly, because I represented the older profiles in lighter colors, in yellow, and then the most recent ones are in darker colors. So we can see that the evolution clearly shows that there is a decline in unpaid household labor for all ages, but the biggest change is clearly during childbearing ages, and these are really much in line with the trends. Obviously, labor force participation for women increased a lot, as well as fertility rates declined, and that also decreased unpaid household labor. There is also a shift to the right, which I will also show a little later. This is the reason for this is that in childcare there is a decision for later parenthood, and that also changed the shape of the age profile. And what also changes in the shape of the age profile, that at later ages there is a clear 2-peak age profile. So here, after childbearing ages, there is a decrease. And again, this is related to institutional settings, so the work and family policies, because there were policies that reconciled paid and unpaid, or paid and unpaid work, in a sense that women went back to work after giving birth more easily, especially in the Netherlands. They had flexible working arrangements, which then made it clear that they could go back to work and worked less at home. Now this is for the UK and Italy. We can see a little bit different changes. In UK too, we can see this decrease in 2005, though we couldn't see it in earlier ages. While in Italy, both the decrease is not so big, so there was a decrease, but not so big, from 88 to 2002, and this 2-peak age profile is not so pronounced. So again, the institutional background of the countries did have an effect on the shape of these profiles. in Italy it's not so easy to reconcile family and work, and also the gender ideology also has an effect, so women still work a lot more in the household in Italy. So while we could see a decrease for women, we can clearly see an increase for men. So there was an increasing demand for men's participation, and indeed we can see that there is a pretty big increase for men, especially during childbearing ages, but also at older ages. So there is some kind of gender convergence. Still, women do a lot more, but they are getting closer. So this is what I also mentioned, that there is this shift to the right in the total production profiles, and this is because of the childcare production. So because of delayed parenthood, the peak of this childcare production profile shifts to the right, and then this also shifts the peak to the right. We can also see an increase for grandparenting. Now the consumption profiles. So there is not such a big difference between men and women for consumption. Usually for every country and almost every year the shape is the same. At early age, children consume a lot, especially when they are newborn. They have a lot of care received, and then it declines sharply by age. Usually it's around ages 20 and 50 when it's the smallest, and then it again increases, especially after retirement, when older people again work a lot more in the household and they also consume it. So there is an increase now. This is for Spain, for both men and women during childhood, but otherwise there is not such a big change. For childcare consumption, we can see again a quantity-quality trade-off, like Gretchen introduced. So in later ages, with lower fertility, children consume more at almost all ages, or basically all ages. So again, the yellow is from 1974, and this dark blue is from 2005, so they receive more care from their parents. For the working age and elderly population, there is not a clear trend. So first it goes up, but then it goes down again, so overall we couldn't see a very big change. Now we look at the net transfers, which is subtracting production from consumption, age group by age group or age by age. This is what we get for men and women. Now we can clearly see that women transfer more. So here's the zero. In the Netherlands, men transfer more and more, and women transfer less and less. But you can still see that women transfer much more. So, because when you are here in the negative, you make a surplus, while you are here or in these early ages, and for men at older ages, and for women only at the very end of life, you are then the receiver of unpaid household labor. So again, just to clarify, the main point here is that for men do transfer more, especially at childbearing ages, while women transfer less, but still the difference goes for women. And yes, this is my last slide. Again, for Italy, there is a change. Again, men transfer a little more and women transfer a little less, but still in Italy, as you can see, the age profile for men is above 0 all the time, which means that basically they don't transfer unpaid household labor at all. They always receive it from the labor of women. And basically, I would just like to conclude that time transfers basically go from from women to men, and from working age population to children, and to a lesser extent to older age group. Thank you.
So thank you, Lili. These results always show how important this unpaid work is in the economy, and especially in the intergenerational transfer system. Alexios.
Thanks very much. I think it's terrific which data you have here. I was just wondering, on the production side, there's a crossing over at the older ages for females. That they are, in fact, in the recent years, they are producing more of this unpaid work. It was the first slides. Yes.
Here, oops, I'm sorry.
Yes, so in the later ages, like age 70 onwards, because usually it's like that the more recent time periods, you have a downward shift, but in the upper ages, you have an upward shift. I have a guess, but I would like to know your answer.
Yes, okay, so from 1905 and 2000, there is there is no drop here for older ages, but in 2005 we still could see a drop, and usually because the last age group is 80 plus, so that means that the ones who are 80 years old or older, there is always a drop for them. But it's true that in 2009...
My feeling it's a very selective group, because we're missing all the institutionalized households. Sorry.
My feeling it's a selected result, because we are, if I am correct, we are missing all those households which are living in institutions. So those who are left over in the survey at these older ages are quite a very selected active group.
Yes, it's true. Yes, in a sense, it might. You mean that if we regard their work as zero, then it would drop a little more. That's true. In NTA, it's also very hard to grab those who are institutionalized, and I don't know exactly in the Netherlands, maybe someone knows it better how much the percentage is. I'm sure that it grew by 2005, so yeah, this is a little bit a limitation. Thank you.
Some more questions or comments? Otherwise, I have one.
I'm always sort of surprised in the time transfer accounts that we find so little elder care, you know, that there's not this big avalanche, and certainly that's compared to childcare, it's going to be easier to marketize elder care, but so, I mean, do you think in NTA that we can also pull out the elder care that's done in the market side and try, I feel like that's sort of a limitation, you know, we like to combine all these care stuff, but then the care that's not just health care going to elderly people is sort of invisible in NTA. So I wonder if anybody, if you've talked about doing that, or if we could do that in the future.
I think maybe Tanja can tell you a little more about the elder care in NTA, and I think we'll also have a little session on this, or at least some minutes for sure, in our workshop. So it's true, and I also have to mention maybe another limitation in time use surveys. To capture elder care might be a little difficult because it's not taking place every day. Maybe it's, you know, only once a week, though it's very important, and then it might not come out in the survey well. So thanks for mentioning
that. I had a look at your NTA data for Europe, and how much time parents or children get from their parents across Europe. And it seems to me that in countries like Sweden or France, which has a lot of like public provided childcare facilities, the time which parents spend for their children is a little bit lower. Now obviously this time costs of parents, it is very costly to have children, especially in those countries where parents have to devote a lot of time to their children. I think Italy, because in Italy, women devote a lot of time to their children, they stay at home from the labor market. Do you think that reducing the time costs, like by providing public childcare facilities like in Sweden or France, would help to boost fertility? Like you reduce the cost of the children, and that's why people are more likely to decide to have more children.
Okay, so you are right that so now I showed the historical profiles, but we have for 17 countries we also have most recent profiles, and indeed for smaller children the childcare consumption or how much childcare do they receive is indeed higher if the women cannot go back to the labor force so easily. So for example Hungary, Slovenia, Poland, etc. I'm not really an expert on this, but I think there will be many who say that if there are childcare, if there are places for childcare and women can take their kids there, then there might be an increase. Yeah. So. You know, it's. I think you never know, but what I think is that helping them for sure is not a bad thing, even if they don't have more kids.
I think it was a bit related to your to the previous paper you presented, but it came back to my mind when I saw this age profile. So
yes, yes, I understand. Okay.
So something more. Otherwise, I would thank all the presenters. It was a really interesting session.